When did you, what was the moment when you realized that your playing career was behind you? You know, you obviously went off to America for a while, and then you transferred to the New York Red Bulls, and then you retired at sort of 37 years old. But was there a moment where you realized, a day where you thought, do you know what? I'm not going to be on the pitch as a professional player anymore?
Yeah, there was a day, and you might laugh, but my daughter was at home in New York. I suffered of Achilles problem for more than 10 years, both sides. I was in pain every morning, really. Pain. Pain was never going away all day, both sides, both of my Achilles. Sometimes I felt a bit better, sometimes no, but every morning I was in pain, afternoon, night, for 10 years. So I'm at home with my daughter, and she comes close to me and she touches me and she goes, "You eat." And she ran. I wanted to run, I couldn't. I wanted to run, I couldn't. I looked at her, I said, "Hey, you won." I couldn't chase her. And I stopped, I went, "What are you doing?" Like, I just couldn't. I'm not even joking, Stephen. She ran and I just couldn't move. What are you doing? That's when I knew I couldn't handle pain anymore. Because this is what it is. People forget about anything that you can think of. You need to love pain to be an athlete. And I know, no pain, no this, whatever, all the
quotes and
oh
stuff.
no, this is real. You need to love pain. However, mentally, physically, love it. You need to love it. If not, stay where you are.
And then you retire eventually at 37 years old from professional football. Yeah. What happens then?
I was in a way happy. I'll tell you why. Because I stopped. Some people stop because of injuries. Some people stop because of different stuff. I stopped. It was on my terms. I stopped. You know, it's better than people were like, "Thierry, you still can play." Oh, I knew I could still play. But I stopped. So I didn't have a problem with stopping. Like, when, the fear that day, I didn't have a problem with that. But I didn't know what's going to come after. You prepare yourself, you pass your badges, you prepare yourself mentally and whatnot. But then, how do you feed the competitor? How do you feed the guy that loves to please? When he can do it or not every 3 days? How?
Have you learned a lot of these insights from watching your kids get to just play and be kids?
As I use that line often, I got educated and my kids are re-educating me. My kids save me. They are saving me every day. Every day I see something new. They're teaching me to be a dad, a better dad, not a better dad than my dad. This is what I'm saying. Myself, a better dad. And they're opening doors that I didn't know how to deal with. It's very, sometimes when you I can see sometimes when they look at me how much they love me and how much they like, "Oh, dad." But if they only knew, actually, I look at them the same way. Thanks for being here because it would have been tough. Because as an athlete, as long as you stay within that frame, you can feed whatever you need to feed to satisfy that little thing that you have, your ego, your avoiding your problems. Because you prefer to be the athlete than the human being. Because then the athlete, it's easier. You know what to do. Well, I knew what to do. Even if it was painful, whatever, I knew what to do. This is why when you go there, you're like, "Oh no." So it's easy for a little while when you have your career. But I think you remember that. As an athlete, and I say it and I will maintain it, you die when you stop. The athlete, a competitor, dies. I can never play again in the Prem. I can never play for France anymore. I don't care what people say, you can play football. Not at that level. Not competing the way I used to compete. And that part of me died. So people don't teach you to die. So now you are going to face all your problems because you could put them on the side because you're playing games, because you have other things that will cover that. But once everything stops, we're not used to be at home. We're not used to deal with a normal life. Since I'm 13, I never had a normal life. Understand me well, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying to go back like to the real world, it's a shock to the system because you're actually technically not equipped to live in that world.
It's an interesting comparison to make, but when you hear people talk in these terms, you think of someone that had been incarcerated in jail, or you think of someone that went off to maybe the military and then returned after war to a normal life and couldn't sort of acclimatize to what it meant to just sit in silence alone. And in many respects, although those examples are quite extreme in many cases, your experience of being a football player since sort of 5 years old, being drafted into this elite academy at 13 years old, and then spending the rest of your career in sort of institutions high performance institutions where, as you say, like you were distracted from having to think about being a human and you were an athlete. Your identity was an athlete. Your expectations were based on being an athlete. Your sense of validation came from being an athlete. And suddenly, boom.
It's over. Look, actors often go into depression or problem when they go into a character for a movie. Because at one point they don't know who they are anymore. They become that character. So when you put that cape as a player for more than 20 years, and you have to be what you have to be for people, because you might transcend them, because of what you transmit, the feeling that you have with your club and with the fans. That almost like you're like, yeah, I belong. When I had to fit in for a very long time, now I belong. When that goes, can't wear that cape anymore. And when you wear that cape, you feel different. Responsibilities, performing, losing, winning, doesn't matter, but you know the next day what you need to do in order to compete. Put the cape on. When you leave that cape, it's like you're naked. Like, oh, wait, hang on a minute. Now they see my weakness. They see my things. You see your weakness. You feel it. It's different. You know, when it's like whatever it is for you, that when you put your cape, you're like, okay, put it down. You're like, oh, I don't like that so much. So how do you deal with that? This is why, I mean, when I say you die, obviously it's strong. Understand me well with what's happening in the world at the minute. Maybe it is strong to say, but that part of me died, never come back. That can never come back. A singer can sing. You can have your concert up until I can't play anymore. I have to deal with that. And that, it's tough to deal with. It's tough to deal with because that's your medicine. You can't take it anymore. So there's another life. There's obviously, it's not the end. But you need to learn how to be at home, to connect with your missus, to connect with your kids. Because the way of connecting before was very minimal. When you think about it, you're never at home. So now you arrive at home when you stop your career, you're like a guest. Oh, that's what you do, you guys, when I used to play? Mm-hmm. It's not, understand me well. I'm not complaining. I'm not saying, people have, I understand. I'm just trying to explain what I went through, what I'm going through.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.